Welcome everyone to our third session of chapter 1 of all the students who are preparing for investment advisor level 1 exam. So far I have discussed about basically what is financial planning. Okay, we have discussed about the phase of how the financial planning is need to be done. And then we have discussed about the role of financial planner. Okay, now going further in this third session, I'm going to talk about the scope of financial planning. So as you understand, and if you have gone through my last two sessions, you have understood the terms of financial planning. You understood how the process of financial planning basically works. You know that financial planning is all about how we can plan for our current and our future expenses and requirement so that we can make our future much more sustainable. Okay, so now discussing about the elements of financial planning, advising and planning services. The first thing is the goal setting. So goal setting talk. I have initiated this term goal setting already in my previous video, and I believe you have gone through that video. So basically, goal setting is the first step of how the financial planning is basically worked on. So when we are working on financial planning, the first step is the goal setting. And when it comes to goal referred to what has to be achieved. That is basically a goal. Okay, so every individual goal would be different from the other person. So that gives a clear target which need to be reached. And when we are talking goal setting, we need to also look upon on the parameters basically that we need to keep in mind while talking about the goal setting. For example, if I'm saying that I want to get rich in very small period of time, so then I need to uh, work on those kinds of assets which would be very risky. Okay, so imagine a person who want to reach in a 2 year, and the other person who want to reach maybe in next 15 year. Their goal setting would be very different. The asset allocation for them would be very different. So everyone goal settings, every goals are different from the other person. These goals which I'm talking about, they need to be measurable. Okay, you cannot talk about something, you cannot set some goals which cannot be measurable for the prime facia. So that basically it is very important that these goals what we are setting, they need to be realistic. Okay, so that make more sense. So imagine if my salary is 50,000 rupees per month, and I'm setting a goal which require per month saving of 80,000, then that doesn't make any sense to be worked on. Finally, the goal has to be time bound. So few things which we need to keep in mind when we are talking about goal setting. Okay, the first thing when we are talking about goal, the first thing while working on a goal is that that goal should be achievable. First thing, the goal should be achievable. You need to talk about such kind of goal which should be achievable. Okay, next thing is that the goal should be measurable. Next thing is that the goal should be measurable. Okay, the third thing that the goal should have time bound. Okay, the goal should have time bound. Okay, there should be a parameter of time to be attached with the goal. Whenever a person is making a goal, that should be time bound. Okay, going further, talking about goals and all, we need to be aware about other feature of goal setting process. Okay, the other process basically, if I'm talking about, basically if I'm looking into this phase here. So once all these features are considered, what are these features? Those features are basically, when I'm talking about these features are that whenever you're setting a goal, it should be achievable, it should be measurable, it should have time bound parameter. Okay, so when you're talking about these parameters of goal, okay, and when we have set this goal, we need to also make sure that that how these goal can be worked on. Basically discussing the features of this goal, we need to even set the priority also, like which goal should be put first. A person can have multiple goals at the same time, like things like children education and retirement should come in front of something like spending on luxury car or other expenses which does not create an asset. Okay, so it is easy to look at the short-term needs, but this come at the cost of long-term disruption of the goals. Okay, this is why there has to be priority to goals that improve our financial health. That is very important. So we need to make sure that whenever we are setting a goal, we should not only look for short-term perspective. Apart from looking for from short-term perspective, we need to also think about our long-term time horizon of achieving some goals so that we can create some form of assets for ourselves in the future. For example, there might be a large credit card outstanding and some extra income is earned by the individual. In such a situation, instead of spending that amount, it should be important that the person should clear off his credit card debt. That is more important because the factor of interest which ultimately eat away the value of the earning what the person is trying to create, instead of paying out the money for his uh, credit card. So instead of postponing the payment of the credit card, if the person is trying to achieve some form of return, maybe investing in stock market and other things, such things should be postponed and the first priority should be given to the payment of credit card outstanding. Then going further, we should know that while setting the goals, there can be multiple goals. We need to be in position that we can measure these goals. At the same time, we need to make sure that the goal should have time bound. Okay, at the same time, we need to make sure that the goal should be achievable. Okay, goals can be short-term goals, it can be long-term goals. So goals such as retirement, okay, and the education of children, okay, they are the important financial goal, and for which the adequate fund should be created or should be kept like retirement and all. They should be given lower priority over the children education. You can understand because they have time. Okay, retirement planning can be done. Education is the urgent shorter term goals should be given more what you say priority over the longer term goals. Okay, so here the important parameter you need to keep in mind that whenever we are working on goals, okay, we need to always work on setting the priorities. Okay, so which goal should be given more preferences over the other goal, that is very important. Like spending money on holidays and large purchases should not be given preferences over generation of assets. Okay, so that is very important whenever we are working on goals. Okay, going further, like here it is written here that client often believe that the provident fund superannuation and gratuity corpus they will receive on retirement will be adequate to ensure a comfortable living during the retirement age years. In many cases, it turned to be inadequate. Therefore, every client need a retirement plan. So for long term, when it comes to dividing the goals on the time period, although thinking about children education is very important, the betterment of our new generation is very important to look upon. But at the same time, planning for the retirement is very important. We need to look into that fact also that the money which may might receive and the maturity in the form of provident fund or gratuity, it may not be enough to sustain and in future, because in future because of inflation, we know that the value of money is going down with the time. So we need to also think about scenario where EMI plays very important role. The scenarios where possibly inflation will kill away the value of money. Okay, going further, if I talk about staggering the timing of certain goals, the financial situation of an individual may not allow all the financial goals to be provided for. Some financial goal may have a deferred to ensure that the critical financial goals are not compromised. Okay, there are situations when it is not possible to achieve a financial goal in a specific time. For example, an example could be a person wanting to buy a house within the next few years, which would require a down payment of 20 lakh rupees plus and monthly installment of 30,000 rupees. Okay, it could be that the current income situation is not able to support such a situation. Instead of canceling the goal, there can be another route available. This is to push back the goal by some time, which will enable the individual to get the required finance in order. They, instead of 1 year, if the goal is shot after 3 years, that could have better chance that the desired financial goal will be achieved by then. So here the scenario, what is being written here, which I'm going to tell you, is basically that imagine you at this moment only you want to buy a house, which require you to pay a lot of down payment and then an instantly payment of EMI per month of certain value, which may not be possible for you to do that. But believing that if we are working at this rate or maybe at a more effort rate, possibly it might happen. The same thing can be achieved maybe in the future, maybe after 3 to 5 years. So that is what is being mentioned here. So for instance, around the time the family propose to buy a house, the annual holidays may be reviewed, the holiday may be shorter or planned at a less expensive location. Some financial goals need to be fulfilled within the specific time frame. For instances, education of children, that is more important. So what is being written here, that if we really want to achieve certain goals, okay, so we need to make sure also we need to have an appropriate saving every month so that we can achieve that goal. At the same time, looking into the future, we need to also change our present consumption of the fund. Maybe some form of fund, maybe children educations and all are very important. That should not be compromised. But spending money on shopping or holidays, vacation, that definitely should be contained. And then that definitely these events will help any individual to achieve their goal, what they're looking for. So it's being mentioned that there are certain income that is earned by individual along with the expenses made. Having a plan to ensure that there are savings and these are invested is one part of the process. It is also important that there is a cash flow match so that the household or the individual does not run on any cash flow problem. This happens when the inflow and outflow of cash does not match. So there can be a situation where in a person spend less than what they earn, but still run into cash flow problems. For example, there's a large expense made at the start of the month. It can lead to cash crunch if there's a delay in the receipt of income, unless there's a reserve present. In fact, it could lead to short-term borrowing, which are extremely costly in the term of interest rate. This could lead to part of the amount that is being finally saved to be directed toward paying off the debt incurred due to cash flow mismatch. So again, the next thing what is mentioned here is the cash flow management and budgeting. It is very important that we need to have some liquid fund with us. Okay, it is very important that we need to have certain liquid fund with us. Okay, planning well for the future and then saving money also is really nice. That we should definitely plan for the future and we should definitely save some part of saving for the future dreams and all. That is really a good deal, and we should always propose and we should always work on so that we can do a reasonable investment to beat inflation and to achieve our financial obligation. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we need to have certain liquid fund with us, which can definitely help us if any financial emergency arise. Maybe credit card is one of the option to use at that time. But again, you know that using credit card incur a lot of interest rate if that not being paid on appropriately on the time. So considering a long term planning is really good, but at the same time keeping and fund cash flow with us to manage any uncertain situation in this in a smaller period of time is also being need to be looked upon. It cannot be ignored. Okay, now going further, it is very important that we need to maintain a budget. Okay, budgeting is very important. Okay, we need to always have a budget. We should always make plan for the inflows and outflows of the fund, what we are gonna witness in regular interval of time. So thinking about monthly budget is very good idea, and that definitely help a person to know whether they are managing the income properly or not. A budget has a list of all the items of income and expenses along with the amount. This ensures that with a single look, it is possible to know what exact financial position is and whether there is adequate saving taking place or not. That is also very important. So every person should make sure that they have a personal budget with them. Okay, and a lot of people pay attention to the union budget, but they fail to do budget themselves. It's really good saying. It is being mentioned here. So we all see what government is talking about in their financial budget when they come up with their budgeting. But at the same time, we forget to think about how we can plan for our budget. That is also very important thing. Next thing is the insurance planning, because life is very uncertain. So factors impacting our life, it's very important to be worked on. Either we need to think about general insurance, where whatever the assets we have, we should we should take an insurance for them, so that they can protect us in case of fire or theft or any other events. So insurance planning involves estimating the losses to the household from unexpected events and choosing the right product and amount to cover these losses. I think everyone should work on. So insurance basically help us in a risk transfer mechanism, where the small amount what we pay to the insurance company, ultimately they take over our risk of losing that asset. And that way the health and health and accident insurance, that way definitely help us in meeting this uncertain situation if it happens, or it any time can happen with anyone. And everyone should definitely should prepare themselves, and they should consider budgeting and insurance a very important parameter of their day-to-day planning management. Going further, if I talk about debt management and controlling, the investment advisor, they help households to plan their liability efficiently. It is common for household to borrow in order to fund their homes, car, and durables. Several households use credit card extensively. You know that we all are dependent on credit card. Okay, future of a portion of our future income has to be appropriated to repay this borrowing. This impact the ability to save in the future, and in extreme cases can stress the ability to spend on essentials also. So the asset being funded by borrowing may be an appreciating asset such as property, which also capable of generating rental income, or the loans could be funded by an depreciating assets such as car, which may require additional expenses on fuel and maintenance, but provide a better lifestyle and commuting convenience. So evaluating which assets or expenses can be funded by borrowing is a function investment advisor can perform. So any investment advisor, we being an individual, or if we take the help of anyone else to plan for our investment horizon, it is very important that how we look for a future. Okay, probably considering investing our funds on some depreciable assets does not give much sense to us. So here it is important that we should also plan for our betterment of the future, where we should think of investing on those assets which should be in appreciating assets such as property, which can be capable of generating rental incomes. Those should make more sense. Okay, so here how we plan for our assets and expenses is very important, and that tell us how much we can finance our assets, how much we can borrow, how to provide for the repayment, how to ensure that the credit scores are not unfavorably impacted, how to look upon excessive borrowings which can create a debt trap. All these scenarios need to be looked upon. A financial planner work is to make sure that they should advise and appropriate assets which should appreciate in the future. Okay, and at the same time they should give us guidance about how to pay off the existing liabilities what an individual can have. Okay, so counseling is very important. Okay, that helps any individual when they plan for their investment in much more appropriate way. Okay, just give me a moment. I'll just take a break. Now, going further, if I talk on investment planning and asset allocation, a crucial component in financial planning and advising is the funding of financial goals of an household. So, investment planning involves estimating the ability of the household to save and choose the right assets in which such savings should be invested. Okay, so an investment planner, once he or she set the goals, where we talked about a goal should be measurable, a goal should have time priority, a goal should be quantifiable in nature. Okay, all these things when the goals are being designed, and then an investment planner should work on the financial management of an individual, where they should see the income and expenses of the individual, where the guidance about the appreciable asset should be given, keeping making sure that the long term goals should always be achieved. They should be given preference without compromising on the short term important tools there for the day to day management and working for the expenses. Planning for insurance is very important. Okay, so a very crucial fact which the investment advisor should work on, that is investment planning. So investment planning consider the purpose or the financial goal for which the money is being put aside. These goals can be short term, okay, like buying a house or taking a holiday or buying a gift or funding a family ceremony, or it can be long term, such as the education of the children, retirement for the income earners, or high income goals such as the marriage of children. So investment advisors should help with a plan to save for these goals and suggest an appropriate asset allocation for this for the same. So investment advisor does not focus on the selection of stocks or bonds, but instead take a top-down approach of the asset allocation. So very important, the investment advisor should work on a top-down approach of asset allocation, where they focus on how much money is invested in which particular asset class in order to deliver the expected return within the risk preference of the investor. Okay, where the advisor job is to construct an portfolio of asset classes taking into account the goals, the saving, the required return, the risk taking ability of the investor. This is the one of the core function of the advisor, and they should specialize in the asset allocation and the investment planning for the investors. Okay, so once the goal setting is being done, the first work of the financial planner is to work on the goal settings, where I have spoken about the parameters of the goals. Okay, so parameters of the goal, where we talked about the goal should be measurable, goal should be quantifiable, goal should be achievable. Okay, then in order to work on the goal, the financial planner should work on judging or analyzing the financial situation of the individual financial situation, talking about their income, their expenses, the way they are presently managing their situation, how efficiently they're budgeting their expenses, how much they are thinking about cash flow management to meet their short-term liquidity requirement. All those things should be worked on. Then the financial planner should talk about investment planning and asset allocation. Then the financial planner should talk about investment planning and the asset allocation. Then the investment asset allocation. Okay, everyone. Okay, the next thing what the financial planner should think also is the tax planning. So we're going to talk about tax planning here. So the income is subject to tax, we know that, and the amount an individual can save, the return they earn on the investment, and therefore the purpose they're able to build for the future goal all get impacted by the tax. You know that, right? There's something called Section 80C. So when we talk about asset allocation and investment advice, we should always look upon how much investments are being made justifying the Section 80C requirement and tax saving appropriation. Okay, so an investment advisor should be able to assess the impact of tax on the finances of the individual and advise appropriate saving and investment options. The post-tax returns of the financial product will have to be considered while choosing the product and estimating the holding periods. The taxability of various types of investment income, such as dividend, rent, and interest. So these are differs. So the way the interest is being taxed, or rent are being taxed, or dividend are being taxed, are all are different. So the treatment of return is accumulated rather than paid or periodically variations. So the taxability of gains differ based on the holding period. So an investment advisor should bring these aspects in the mind while constructing the tax management of an individual. At the same time, when the next thing what the financial planner should look upon is the retirement planning, retirement planning. Okay. So, providing for retirement is one of the primary financial goal that all people should plan for. Given its complexity and the nature of well-being in the future, many people tend to ignore until it's too late, thereby compromising the quality of the retirement. To be able to plan for retirement, it is important to understand the concept of time value of money. In the next chapter, we'll talk about time value of money, where we talk about future value of money, present value of money. This is the basic formula. So future value of money is equal to 1 plus future value of money is equal to present value into 1 plus rate of interest to the forward time. Okay. So we'll work on these, the way the inflation impact that already I have mentioned in past, and also keep on repeating the same thing. So saving and investing for retirement therefore require understanding of how compounding benefit investors saving for the long-term goals. So it is important to select the right financial product that are best suited for the long-term nature of the investment goals and the retirement goals, and that will able to help uh, to meet the individual requirement of the fund. That is very important. Okay, so in the pre-retirement stage, rebalancing the portfolio to the less volatile assets is important activity. As the retirement approaches, the process of planning should shift focus to expenses in retirement, the adequacy of the income from investment and pension benefit to meet these expenses, and strategies to meet the shortfall, if any. While investing the retirement corpus for income, the taxability of different sources should be considered. The retirement portfolio should be monitored and rebalanced through the term of retirement too, since the need does not remain the same. Investment advisors should bring the skills to require to design and execute the retirement plan. So retirement plan is again a very important aspect what the investment advisor should work on. So in the personal financial analysis, we have spoken about goal setting. We have spoken about how much emphasis we need to give to goal setting, where we talked about cash flow management, budgeting, insurance planning. We talked about the debt management and counseling, investment planning and asset allocation. We have spoken about tax planning. We have spoken about retirement planning. Now we'll talk about estate planning. So you know that wealth is passed on across generation, and the process of intergenerational transfer not only involve legal aspects with respect to entitlement under personal law, but it also uh, by the way of documentation process enables a smooth transition of wealth in an tax efficient way. So estate planning refers to all the activities that are focused on the transfer of wealth to the heir, charity, and other identified beneficiaries. So there are several tools and structure to choose from in estate planning. Some choices such as gift can be exercised during one's lifetime, while choices like will come into play after death. So investment advisors help household to make their choices after considering all the implication and help them to complete the legal and documentation process efficiently. So apart from tax planning and wealth management, what I was talking about, the next thing what we need to see here is the next thing is the state planning. The state planning is basically the benefit or the financial assistance what we get from our generation. And India being a country where our ancestors and our fathers definitely transfer some form of assets or will to their upcoming generation. So their estate planning definitely is very important parameter, which even the investment advisors should always looked upon whenever they give guidance of how the goal setting can be worked on, so that in the future an investor can look to create some form of asset for themselves and for their family. So I hope you have understood the scope of financial planning in this class. In the next class, we'll talk about the concept of asset liabilities and net worth. Okay, guys, so it's time to wind up this session. I'll see you all in next session. Take care. Bye, everyone.